The rain fell without mercy that night, beating steadily against the corroded tin roof of the aging clinic on the outskirts of town. Within its walls, the waiting area carried the subtle scent of antiseptic mixed with humid air. A young woman burst through the entrance, pressing a small bundle tightly against her chest. Her complexion was ashen, her clothing drenched completely, and her shaking hands conveyed the desperation of her purpose. "Please," she pleaded, her voice fracturing. "Please, somebody help my baby." The nurses stationed at the front desk glanced up, startled. Before them stood a girl who appeared no older than 19, without shoes and shivering, her hair plastered to her face. The blanket cradled in her arms shifted slightly, and a feeble cry emerged from within. The noise was so delicate it resembled a mere whisper. One nurse hurried forward, guiding the girl toward a chair. "What's the matter with the baby?" she questioned with urgency. The young woman attempted to respond, but her lips trembled. He's struggling to breathe properly. I believe there's something wrong with his heart. Please save him. I have no money, but I'll do whatever it takes. Just don't let him die." Her plea brought silence to the entire room. Even the weary elderly doctor seated beyond the glass partition stopped, his pen halting mid-signature. He'd witnessed desperation countless times before, but something in the girl's gaze, a blend of fear and fierce devotion, compelled him to rise. "Bring them inside," he commanded decisively. Her name was Lena. She resided in a modest shack near the river, a dwelling where wind whistled through gaps in the structure, and meals often consisted of nothing more than rice and water. Existence had been harsh to her. Her mother had died when she was 12, and her father, employed at a factory, had disappeared one morning without returning. She'd matured understanding that survival required strength, even when the world remained indifferent to her suffering. At 16, Lena encountered David. He was compassionate, tender, and different from anyone she'd previously known. He vowed to give her a better existence, one where she wouldn't face hunger or freezing nights. However, when she became pregnant, everything transformed. David was laid off from his job, and shortly thereafter he departed from town, leaving behind nothing except a few worn shirts and the remnants of shattered vows. Nevertheless, Lena bore him no resentment. She convinced herself he would return. Yet as her abdomen expanded, so did the gossip. Townspeople mocked her, labeled her naive, predicted her baby would only increase her suffering. She disregarded them all. She'd already determined this child would become her purpose for living. But now, cradling her fragile and laboring baby in the doctor's examination room, she worried she might lose the only treasure she possessed. The doctor, Dr. Reyes, inspected the infant meticulously. The baby's miniature chest lifted and descended irregularly, every breath a struggle. His lips appeared bluish, his pulse weak. "He has a congenital heart defect," the doctor announced solemnly. "He requires surgery. Immediately." Lena's heart plummeted. "Surgery?" she breathed. "How much will that cost?" The doctor paused, reluctant to deliver the news. "It's costly. Far too costly for someone lacking insurance." Her tears flowed rapidly, then uncontrollable. "Please, there has to be something you can do. I'll scrub the hospital floors. I'll rest outside. I'll do whatever is necessary. Just don't let him die." The doctor averted his gaze. He'd been practicing at this modest clinic for years, repeatedly forced to decide between compassion and practicality. There were no charitable funds available, no complimentary surgeries. But witnessing how Lena gripped her baby, her knuckles pale, her eyes brimming with pure determination, something within him awakened. "I'll reach out to some contacts," he said softly. "Perhaps I can arrange his transfer to the city hospital." Hours transformed into days. Lena never departed from her baby's presence. She hummed to him gently, even when his eyes remained shut, even when equipment beeped alongside him. Nurses murmured about her in the corridors, how she declined to eat until someone compelled her to, how she offered prayers every hour, how she managed smiles through tears whenever her baby stirred, even minimally. One evening, as she remained beside the crib, her baby's oxygen measurements suddenly plummeted. Alerts sounded and physicians rushed inside. Lena stood motionless, her body quaking, observing as they labored frantically to rescue him. She clasped her hands together, murmuring, "Please God, don't take him. Take me in his place. Just not him." Moments afterward, the monitors steadied. The baby survived, but only narrowly. When the doctor approached her later, his expression was somber. "Lena," he said gently, "I contacted the hospital in the city. They've consented to admit him, but the surgery is intricate. It's dangerous. You need to mentally prepare yourself." Lena acknowledged with a nod. I'll travel anywhere. I'll authorize anything. Just save him. The following morning, an ambulance transported them to the city. Lena occupied the rear, her hand positioned on her baby's minuscule fingers. She murmured to him tales of the future, how he'd master walking, how he'd giggle, how they'd observe the stars together from their modest house. Upon their arrival, the hospital's brilliant lights and gleaming floors made her feel insignificant and displaced. Passers-by stared at her weathered clothing, at her exhausted face, but she paid no attention. All she perceived was her baby being rolled into the operating room. Hours elapsed. The clock mounted on the wall seemed merciless, each tick resonating in her chest like a timer. She prayed, wept, and waited. Eventually the doctor emerged. His expression was difficult to interpret. "Is he?" she began, her voice wavering. The doctor smiled kindly. "He survived. He's a fighter, exactly like his mother." Lena crumpled into tears, pressing her hands against her chest. For the first time in months she experienced the burden lifting. Her baby was alive. But the miracle didn't conclude there. When the nurses presented the baby days afterward, cleansed and resting peacefully, everyone in the room reacted with astonishment. His face, so flawless, so cherubic, bore a birthmark shaped like a heart over his left cheek. It was tiny, graceful, and unmistakable. "It resembles a heart," one nurse murmured. Precisely where his mother offered her prayers for him. News traveled swiftly throughout the hospital. The account of the impoverished girl who implored doctors to rescue her baby moved everyone. Contributions flooded in, sufficient to cover the surgery and even establish a modest fund for Lena's future. Strangers arrived to visit, bringing flowers and messages. Lena found it unbelievable. Merely a week prior she'd been unnoticed, another overlooked face in a fractured world. Now people recognized her. They witnessed her resilience, her devotion, and her steadfast hope. Months afterward, Lena sat outside the clinic where everything had started, her baby Gabriel cradled in her arms. He was healthier now, plump cheeks radiating in the sunlight. The small heart-shaped mark on his face had become his mother's cherished feature to admire. Dr. Reyes came to settle beside her. "He's a miracle," he remarked. Lena smiled. "He is, but so are all the individuals who aided him." The doctor nodded in agreement. "You know, when you arrived that night, I nearly informed you there was nothing I could offer. But something about you, I simply couldn't abandon hope. You reminded me of the reason I became a doctor." Lena gazed at him with tears welling in her eyes. "And you reminded me that compassionate people still exist." As time progressed, Lena's story circulated online. A local journalist had published her photograph, showing her holding Gabriel, his tiny heart-shaped mark visible, and it became viral. People found inspiration in her bravery, her refusal to surrender even when circumstances suggested she couldn't prevail. Charitable organizations contacted her, extending their support. She secured a small apartment, began attending classes to become a nurse. "If I can assist even one mother the way they assisted me," she stated, "then everything I endured was worthwhile." Gabriel grew more robust with each day that passed. His laughter permeated their home, his eyes sparkling with vitality. And every time Lena gazed at that tiny heart on his face, she recalled that love had rescued him. Not wealth, not fortune, but love that refused to yield. Years afterward, on Gabriel's 10th birthday, Lena accompanied him to visit Dr. Reyes. The elderly man's hair had transformed to silver, but his smile remained unchanged. Gabriel presented him with a small card that read, "Thank you for saving my heart." The doctor chuckled softly. "It was your mother who rescued you, son. We merely assisted a little." Lena's eyes brimmed with tears once more, just as they had that rainy night years earlier. "I'll never forget what you accomplished," she declared. Dr. Reyes shook his head. "You don't need to. Just continue living, both of you. That's gratitude enough." That evening, as the sun descended over the river, Lena and Gabriel stood outside their small home. The sky was adorned in golden pink hues, the atmosphere serene and tranquil. Gabriel looked upward at his mother and inquired, "Mama, why do I have this heart on my face?" Lena smiled tenderly, trailing her fingers across the mark. "Because when you were born, your heart required help, and I prayed so intensely for it to be strong that God chose to remind us both, right here, of how powerful love can be." He beamed. "Does that mean I'm special?" She embraced him tightly. "More than you'll ever know." Moral of the story: sometimes miracles don't arrive wrapped in wealth or privilege. They emerge through love that refuses to surrender. Lena's story teaches us that regardless of how dark the night becomes, hope can illuminate through the smallest beacon. And sometimes that beacon takes the form of a tiny heart on a child's face.